Welcome to another riveting edition of Drop, Hold, Watch DHW with Fauzi and Nick. And
Nick.
can you hear me? Those people that say they've got some audio issues, I'm not sure what's going on, but apparently you tell me that my audio is fine. I thought my audio is fine, but hey, look, if you can't understand what we're talking about, then you might just have to, tune into some other podcaster.
Well, let's not steer away potential listeners. I just the way that I would put it. I'm just using a very base model phone, just an Android, and I had no issues hearing you. Just want
Yep.
to put that
Well,
out
there
there.
you go. There you go.
And we have had audio issues in the past. So sometimes people are
True.
right.
True.
I had
True.
probably one of my best podcasts of all time, and no one heard it. So
Whoops.
that's
Whoops. That
that
mine was
happens.
totally mute. So there you go. I topped you. I hate to
Yeah,
say
yeah, yeah.
it.
That's all good.
Mm.
I'm gonna put this out because this is probably most likely when people are still watching. A part of me was feeling finding it hard to sometimes put players into the drop hold watch category, and a part of me was thinking, do we need to almost transfer this to like stock language, where it's like stock is up, stock is holding, stock is down. And that would be a better way to talk about players. It's just an idea. Maybe a potential listener will be like, "Hey, man, that's a great idea." Or maybe they'll be like, "Should I trade LeBron for Ja?" But who knows what we get. Let's
I,
drop some players. Let's get
I,
them out of
I,
there.
I love the tone that you undertook there. Maybe our listeners are female. Like, what would they sound like, Dick?
Analytically, they are not female. I tell you what, if you meet a female that's really into fantasy basketball, pass on them to this video. I'll try to get in touch. We'll see what can happen. That's how that's gonna
Nick's
work,
on the
man.
lookout. but
I'm looking clean. Let's
so,
go. Let's
but, so
all
so
right.
let's
Let's drop
start with
some
our drop
players.
list. Yeah, who you want to start or shall I start? I'm not fussed. We,
I look. I love dropping players. Some of these feel like knee jerks. Some of these feel long overdue. I'm gonna work my way up. Because I'll probably talk more about the first one, and then I'll really just leave it as open. Buddy Hield's the first player on my drop list.
he
So,
he's a warrior.
um, he is a warrior. I'm a warrior for him. So, Buddy Hield, probably the thing that most people need to pay attention to when it comes to fantasy is minutes, right? And so Buddy Hield's minutes have sort of started to decline. He was teetering around 30 minutes a game, and outside of the Memphis game, in his last five, he's actually not getting more than a half of basketball. So this has had a direct impact on his stats, but also the context of the team. Steph Curry is back. There was a nice little window where him and Steph were feeling it out, and Steph was out for a little bit with an injury. And if you look at his stats, and I'm sure you pulled them up currently, they're trending down. Now, it could be an overreaction by me, but this is what I was talking about before. I actually struggle to sometimes put players in the drop list because players by this start of the season are quite well established. But I guess the thing that I'm highlighting here is he had like 20-point potential with being a threes category leader, and now I'm worried that you wouldn't be able to get anything in return for him. And if you dropped him to the waiver wire, depending on the content of your league, you could actually see him sit there because there are other players that give you different things or even better things depending on what you're looking at.
Look, Matt, I tried to trade for Buddy Hield actually. Matt was so adamant these guys can't non-tradable. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I moved on.
Oh, let's not get on your trades, man. I've seen some of the screenshots coming through. You're crazy. Um, next one. Next one is Jabari Smith Jr. There was one game where you looked at him and you read a really nice stat line, and it was really, really exciting.
Mm.
Jabari Smith Jr., the reason why I'm putting him on the drop list is he's just not worth the consistent roster slot. If you look at his stats, if you've pulled them up currently, you read averages like 11.6 and 6.8 rebounds, and you think, oh, cool, that's like a 12 and 7 guy. And then you read through his box scores, and he gives you 28 and 11, and then he gives you 4 and 2, and he gives you 11 and 9, and he gives you 5 and 4. He is very up and down, and it's not a young player thing, I guess, anymore, right? Because he's actually in his third season. Like this is now,
He's 21.
there's a logjam at what's going on in Houston. Amen Thompson nips at his heels from time to time. Alperen Sengun really does steal a lot of the fantasy stats away. I just think, you look at the minutes there, and it really does teeter around only half of basketball. And I just feel like, you think about teams like Toronto and New Orleans, who right now are really just rolling out anybody. I think you could take a flyer on them because Jabari will just sit there. I'm pretty sure Jabari is in our league currently just sitting there. And I think we all look at him because he seems interesting, but you look at the stocks as well, like 6 steals and 7 blocks on the season. for a guy that size and that mobile, I don't know. I think it's time to give up on Jabari Smith as a permanent roster slot if you haven't already.
Yeah, for a big man shooting 42%, that's not really appealing for me either. Yeah.
And then my last one, the only reason I'm putting this on here is because it gets the clicks, and he did have a position change on, I think, the Yahoo Sports League, which
Oh
a
my
lot
god.
of
I
people are
can't believe you're
excited about.
following positional changes, but okay.
Um, Ben Simmons. So Ben Simmons is the only reason to stream Ben Simmons, and that's the key word, to stream him, is if you need assists. Because everything else, it's incredibly lackluster. He's not giving you more than half a basketball. He is sitting out, it looks to be almost every third game, as a weird little trend. And he might give you 5 assists, he might give you 12 assists. And that's kind of his range there. He seems to give you solid rebounds as well, between 4 and 8, but he gives you no points. And he's not shooting well anyway. And he's not really giving you any stocks. And he sometimes turns the ball over. And the reason why I'm mentioning him is because he's going to be rostered in people's leagues because they don't know any better, or he's going to be picked up hoping for the same thing that we always hope for with Ben Simmons, that he's about to make it, about to figure it out. I just, not that I want to dump on a guy that I've already dumped on enough, but he can rest easy in his 300 million career earnings or whatever it may be. He is phasing out of the league quickly.
It's funny you
That's it.
mentioned Ben Simmons, man. I have two names on my list, and you took one of them just then. I have Ben Simmons on my list too, and I thought you might have a laugh there because obviously I was really, really high on him at the start of the season. And I'm actually not that hot. I'm not saying that I've really dropped on my outlook of him, but I think looking at what's going on around the league, see, this is a level of, the context of what other options are available. Like you sort of said with Jabari Smith Jr., that there are other options that probably can give you a little bit better, even though his numbers are, could be passable, but they're a little bit low. And I think that's the same thing with Ben Simmons. I think we thought maybe a little bit more. Right now, it's about 5 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. I was thinking maybe a couple of points more. Let's say 8, 7, and 7. Yeah, and perhaps a steal or two. Yeah, because he's been known to be able to get, 1.5 steals,
He was
sort of thing.
defensive player of the year, like, conversation.
Correct.
Like the runner up, people felt Rudy shouldn't have gotten it. Like he
I,
was there.
you could always make the case here that, I always thought Ben Simmons probably a little bit more valuable than Draymond. Draymond, obviously,
Mm.
from a team real life perspective, is so
Yeah,
valuable. And
IQ as
yeah,
well, and
yeah,
that. Yep.
absolutely. But from a statistical point of view, Draymond really was just I just chug along in single digits across the board. But my team generally tries to get W's, and I'm a good part of trying to get W's. Whereas Ben Simmons obviously is like he's probably not even hitting the Draymond minimum. Yeah, and it's sort of like like you said, now he's like missing every second, third game potentially to rest his back and any injuries that he has. So yeah, man, I think at the moment I'm like, look, I might have to go win my championship without Ben Simmons, even though I think he's out there, and a few guys
Yeah.
have tried him already, I think. And it's like that's all right. I gotta pick up a few, players that actually give me a little bit more in that context. Yeah, again, if you're going like a 14-man league or a real deep league in that sort of sense, Ben Simmons probably still worth, a hold perhaps. Yeah. But I think from a general consensus, I think yeah, you can do better. You can do better. I think that's what we're saying.
Well, I'm not going to make fun of you because all you did was hope that a player could return to half of their former glory. So there's no shame in that.
My next player here is in the Miami Heat. Let me pull him up. He was dropping our league. And when I was looking through who should I talk about here, I was like, man, this guy, he's gone from like 100 to 0 really quick. Maybe not 0, let's say 10. Yeah, Scary Terry Rozier. Like, what the hell? Like, he's not that old. He's 30. But, he's shooting 38% right now. 12, 13 points. Couple of rebounds, couple of assists. Um, one steal. Like again, he's just not worth holding. There's so many other players that you could, go with, like Buddy Hield, that would probably give you more than,
Yes.
Terry Rozier right now. And I think there was a little bit of a shock because he was such a, I'm gonna bring out his full stats here. Is that he was such a
I've
number
got
two
the full
option.
stats as well.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
such a number two option in Charlotte. Obviously, he's not that old straight away. What he did last season, about 16 points, 42%. Yeah, couple of threes, 90% from the free throw line. That felt like what you would expect again this season. But he's sort of fallen off, like I said. He's definitely taking a decline right now. The Heat need players to step up with Jimmy Butler also injured and sort of declining, and Jimmy Butler's old. Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah,
Mm.
Terry Rozier is just 30. So he's been real disappointing. I can't see me trying to pick him up on our waiver wire. I don't think you're looking at him either.
No.
I'm definitely saying he's a drop candidate right now. If you've got him, find someone better. Find someone better.
Well, I think also, like, I'm gonna counter the surprise sort of thing, because if you look at his career stats, people forget, because time passes, but he was a Boston Celtic, and on the Boston Celtic, his stats look suspiciously close to what they actually currently look like
But he
with
starts
Miami.
now. But he starts now, and he didn't start in
Yes,
Boston.
but I think the thing is, Boston and Miami are well-run franchises, and they don't let like players accrue bad stats. All the disrespect to Charlotte, because that's who they are, but Charlotte is a weird breeding ground of players who go there who just get stats and they don't win, and it doesn't really matter. And Miami doesn't have that culture, and Boston didn't have that culture, and I think this is who he slots into. And it probably opens up a bigger conversation, especially as we get closer to trade deadline. If you see players from the Wizards or even New Orleans, I guess a little bit, or even Toronto get traded, then it really can go one or two ways. Like they could slot into a role and overperform, or they could be put into a role that diminishes their fantasy stats. And I think that's what's happened to Terry here.
Anyway, those are my candidates for drop, man.
Love
Yeah, I
it.
only got two. What do you got for hold, man? I want to hear what you've got.
Yeah, so hold is tricky
Not
because
KD.
this. Haha,
Please hold
nah.
KD.
So my first player that I'm putting on the list, I actually am talking like 100% through my experience here. So my first player is Alexandre Sarr.
Okay.
He's currently rostered on 31% of rosters. I've taken the flyer on him
Mm-hmm.
because of the blocks potential. So, funnily enough, the curse continues. I picked him up, and his blocking stats went down from 2.1 to 1.4. But he really does give you some block. Yeah, he gives you blocks. He actually gives you blocks. Today he
So,
didn't,
what else does he
but
give you besides blocks?
so this is the thing. He doesn't really give you much else. So he can go off for 20 points. He can give you 2 points. He could get 11 rebounds. He could get 2 rebounds. So he's a very up and down rookie, and that's perfectly fine. But the one thing that seems to be consistent is the blocks, right? And I think the reason why I targeted him is that that's my area of concern. And why am I saying hold on? Well, the Wizards will pivot at some point. I don't know that definitively, but I just feel like they're going to do something with the contracts of Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma, and they're going to try to push a bit of a youth movement, right? And we all are tinkering with lineups with the Wizards players, right? Bob Carrington, and even Bilal as well. So we're all playing around with these rookies, kind of hoping that someone takes a step. The reason why I'm saying hold is if you're in a position like me, where you're currently sitting top three in the ladder, and you're feeling confident about your next matchup, and this is not a humble brag, it's just context we're being given here. But you've got a good blocks player that could get better in every other category. Because let's be honest, blocks are the hardest category for a player to suddenly develop and do well in. It's the rest of them that will follow as time progresses. And the longer he plays in the league, he should start to mellow out a bit. And the good games are good, and the bad games, if you have the right team makeup, you can take that hit and get the block. So I'm going to hold on to him for a
I love
little
how
bit
you're
longer.
much more patient with Alexander Saar than you were with the Zachariah kid, man. But anyway, next.
Yeah, don't try to track it. This next one, this is a hold, and this is a lucky hold. I picked up John Collins, and currently I'm looking very savvy. So I don't know if you've seen what's happened, but he went from averaging about 26 minutes to 33 minutes,
Mm.
and that was enough of the push for him to suddenly turn into a bit of a
Walker
beast.
Kessler got injured.
Yeah, so right now it's very opportunistic to hold on to John Collins. We obviously had back-to-back 29 and 28 games, but when he mellows out to what he normally gives you, he's still giving you about 16 and 8 thereabouts. But it's the stocks for me. So in the last week, he's really not had less than 2 steals, and he sometimes gives you some blocks. And you can see how there's a weird stretch in his game log here where he actually had a steal and a block for like 10 straight games, and then he
Mm.
kind of mellowed out a little bit. The reason I'm saying hold is because Utah is a bad team and people have to put up stats on bad teams. And Keontae George seems to have lost that trigger where he's allowed to shoot 30 times a game and he's starting to take slightly less shots. And Lauri Markkanen hasn't lived up to whatever hype he needed to in his third season there now. And Walker Kessler, as you mentioned, is injured. So I'm holding on to him, and I might pivot off him. I might look at a trade, or I might just keep rolling with this because it's so far so good.
I don't mind it. Feel free to trade him to me.
Why don't you offer a good trade instead of RJ Barrett and Jalen Duren every time?
What's wrong with? Oh my God! I can't believe you just dropped those two names. Did you not see what they did today? Did you not see what Jalen Duren did today? Excuse
Let me
me.
go check out your roster.
15
Sorry.
and 22. 15 and 22. You could do much worse than targeting a player like Jalen Duren
Oh
on the
man.
rebuilding Pistons who's going to get minutes as a starting center. I don't know why you guys are so offended about some of the offers I make. Anyway, I feel we've gone totally off track here. This train is derailed because I sent Keith the screenshot because I'm offering him some trades too with those players. And I genuinely think I've loaded this trade for him. And of course, players are up and down games, yeah. But today was an up game, but the ceiling is there, man. Not every kid goes out there and get 15 and 22. You got me fired up now.
I love it. I love it.
No,
Look, you make a good point about the Pistons, and it's probably a team we'll talk about where they're young and feisty, and they're doing some really good stuff. And Atlanta feels young and feisty, and that's why I'm having a great time with Dyson Daniels. But I digress. I'm glad that I got you
next
out.
hold.
Yeah, so the next hold is a player that was dropped, and that's the inspiration for talking about them. But I'm sure a lot of leagues are holding them. It's Drew Holiday, who's currently rostered at 85.5% of rosters. He did miss.
Thanks, Shub. This is your backhanded thanks, Shub.
He did have a game where he missed because of like knee issues or
Yeah.
knee tendinopathy, and that can be a little bit of a red flag here. But this is, I think the reason why Drew Holiday's been so interesting to talk about is because he hasn't given you much stocks this season, and we kind of always look at Drew Holiday and assume we should be able to get a steal and a block every game, or two steals and a block every game, and he hasn't done that yet. And the reason why I say yet is because I think his track history, I think the way that the Celtics are constructed, I think the way the East is panning out, the Celtics will be cruising in third gear, second gear. I don't know cars well enough to know which gear is the best cruising gear, but they're going to be cruising. And there'll be games where Drew Holiday does what he did, where he had 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and a block. And then he's going to have other games where he only gives you 7 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist, right? But I think the thing is, he's probably what we envisioned Ben Simmons doing on a bad team, right? Where he gives you these double-digit points with every other category kind of stuffed around. But yeah, I don't know why this would be dropped. I'm sure this is a hold. He hasn't been as good as Derek White. I think out of the two guards, Derek White's clearly having the better season. But I would say hold, be patient, yada yada.
Well, I
Sure,
actually have Drew Holiday on my 14-man league, and so we're both on the same boat right now, holding Drew Holiday. You're right, his stats don't fly off the page in that sort of sense, but he's still too valuable, and there's a track record, I think, that there's potential and room that it swings upwards slightly. Yeah, maybe a little, an extra steal a game, maybe a couple more points. If they start to rest players down the track as well, then he becomes the third option in the team versus the fourth option, perhaps. Then suddenly, he gets another 5-6 points in that game. That's a win in that sort of situation.
It's the X factor of Kristaps. So, this may not pay off for me for another month or two, but it's the fact that when Kristaps comes back, that team dynamic shifts, and I think Drew Holiday and Kristaps work quite well together. There's actually a lot of encouraging things about Kristaps' return. And again, like, this is the way that I'm operating now. Currently, I'm coasting quite well. I think we have a couple of teams in our league. No, but we have a couple of teams in our league.
You had today, dropped in today. Coasting? Are you coasting? I didn't know you were coasting.
We have a couple. You can admit this, and maybe we'll talk about it in a separate second. But we have a couple of teams, and you probably do as well as a fantasy player, where oh, that guy's actually not really playing, or that guy's got way too many injuries, but he's selling now and he's holding later. For me, I have a little bit of a lead now already over certain teams, and there are certain matchups that I roll into, and I'm like, cool, it's a 6-3 week at minimum because they're not playing or they're not healthy enough to compete, and so I can stash Drew Holiday. I don't have to panic and I don't have to do anything drastic because I can just ride it out until he gets better.
I like it. A week ago, you were telling me you're not championship material. Now you're coasting.
Oh, my team has done a complete 180, but that's a whole other segment.
I love it. Anyway, I guess are those your holds, man?
That's my 3.
I've got this kid in Memphis Grizzlies, man, Zach Edey. He went down with an injury, right? I think a couple games ago. But he is on my hold list. Look, just like you talked about Alexander Sarr, we all forget sometimes he's a rookie, right? There's all this attention on him, and he's a rookie too. And he was starting, he went to the bench a bit, he's got this injury now. But I think you hold him still. You hold him still. That's what I'm trying to say here. If you had Zach Edey, you hold him still. Unless you're Matt, you can drop him to the free agency. but every other owner out there, you should hold him. Okay. Because I think he's going to continue to trend upwards. Once he comes back and once he gets half a season under his belt, he's still the future in Memphis. Yeah, he's still the future in Memphis here. Whoever else they start around alongside him, Jay Huff having a great season, that's not an issue. Good on him, got his contract, and getting the chance to play now. Solid, consistent rotation minutes. I love the storyline there. But Zach Edey is the future in Memphis here. So look, I don't think right now you would rush off to drop him. You're definitely holding Zach Edey. That's my advice.
I can't argue that. He's got too much ceiling. Similar to how you feel about Jalen Duren.
My second player here is maybe you can pull up what percentage he's rostered because he's the rookie. It's funny how actually we were talking a lot of rookies this time round. Is that in LA for the Lakers, which is Dalton Connect, and
that's a hold for you.
I'm saying it's a hold because I'm seeing in some leagues he's already being picked up. I don't know what percentage he's probably still a low percentage.
He's 15.3.
15. Okay, there you go. He's player. It's fair enough in your league. If he's a watch, then I would say go grab him right now. I would even say he's not a watch anymore. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, but I don't know if you've seen his last couple of games. He's cut double digits now, 19, 14, 27, making 5 2 and 5 threes in those games respectively. He's starting to get minutes. Okay, I think last week I talked about Hugh Highsmith, and he's still starting. I think next to K-Love in Miami, and how he has earned Spoelstra's trust and minutes right now. This could change, yes, but right now. And it's the same thing I think with Dalton Connect here. The Lakers are winning. They've won 5 in a row, and he's part of it. He's part of this rotation now that's playing 25 to 30 minutes a game. Think like Peyton Pritchard. Yeah, think like Peyton Pritchard. I'm not saying he's going to give you a triple-double a game, but he's going to give you some solid points, threes, some peripheral stats, and yes, up and down like a rookie does, yeah. But I think he's definitely, if you've got him, if you took him at the start of the season and you still have him, okay, you're right now, you're holding him. Yeah, he's not a kid that you would drop. And right now, if he's like sitting out there, 15% only rostered on leagues, I think you should grab him. I don't think he's even a watch right now. You grab him if you need these sort of stats. Yeah, that's the catch, right? Just like Peyton Pritchard, you learned that lesson a little bit, I guess. If you needed points and threes, great pickup. All right, again, he probably doesn't give you your rebounds, your assists in that sort of sense. Dalton Connect probably doesn't give you that either at this point, but he is getting minutes. He's carving himself out a role, I think, with the Lakers right now.
I'll give my thoughts when I mention him in my watch list.
Nice, on your watch list. Let's go. Let's roll into him. That's it.
That's your hold this time? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start off with Dalton Connect for all the reasons you said. I think the interesting thing about JJ Redick as a coach is he feels more vocal and explicit than a lot of coaches have been in the past for the Lakers. So a lot of Lakers coaches give you the generic feedback of, "Oh, we got to try harder. We got to hustle more. We really got to lock in. Guys just aren't making our shots." JJ Redick comes out and actually says, like, D'Angelo's going to come off the bench because I need to see what he looks like in that unit, and it's not working in the starting lineup. And Max Christie's playing really well, and he's going to keep getting minutes if he can play like that. And it's the same for Dalton as well. So Dalton had 37 minutes to give you that 27.7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals game, which has got everybody so fired up. But prior to that, he got 31 against Memphis to give you 19, 2, and 3, along with a steal. And in San Antonio, he got 26 minutes for 14 points and 3 rebounds. I think the encouraging part for people is his minutes have kind of doubled, really. He was sitting around that 15 to 16 mark, and now he's going to get double the amount of time. And we know that the longer you're on the court, the better things happen. And if he is a true spot-up shooter like he appears to be, then we know that with AD dominating the paint, and LeBron being a distributor, and LeBron's had several games now where he's had like 12 or more assists, he is poised to, average 4 or 5 threes a game, and he could be a category winner in that sense.
I made it a little shorter a while ago, a few weeks ago now, where it was like, here's your way to, get minutes from your coach. Just play like him. and I think JJ Redick sending this kid out there, there's probably some level of, he's got that sort of flair and the same sort of skill set that JJ Redick brought for his, fairly long career really in the NBA, as a player, as a shooter. Yeah, as a shooter, a spot-up shooter that could just knock down that shot and spread the offense in that sort of sense. So I think, yeah, look, go grab this kid. Yeah, that's what we're both saying.
My next player is one near and dear to my heart. It's Santi Aldama. So Santi Aldama's also had a position upgrade, so he actually can be a power forward, small forward, and a center. So he's got value. Unfortunately, his minutes are being chopped. So Memphis was a bit injury bitten at the start, and I think it was a bit low key. As in Jar goes down, that's obvious, but I don't think people realize Desmond Bain was out for a bit, and Jaren Jackson was in and out of the lineup. Um, he was averaging almost 30 minutes a game and giving you a very tame double double, often getting 12, 10, 11 points and around 10 rebounds. And he would have a couple of stocks to go with that. Unfortunately, the last two games seem to be trending towards him getting less than 20 minutes. And in those 20 minutes, he's not really finding his rhythm, which might be a bit of a teething thing I need to endure. But outside of the nice stocks he gave me in the last game with 2 steals and a block, he gave me 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. And that's down on his season averages. And you can see as well in fantasy, you get season stats in the last 7 days, and they're really helpful tools as well. So I'm saying to watch because he may be on your roster. 48% people have him rostered. I'm saying watch because he's pretty solid even in that 20 minutes if you can cope with the lack of points and rebounds and assists. You can like some stocks and some threes. But if it continues to trend downwards and he's only getting like 15 minutes a game, and there's a couple of other like Jay Huff as well and Jay Claveria taking minutes as well, then it might unfortunately turn into a drop because it's just not you're just not getting the minutes out of him to give you anything.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I feel like it. I actually feel like a bit of a. I feel like we're earning some credibility because that's an on the money one. The minutes are down. We're all on it. My other watch. I'm sure you've probably flagged it as well, and you are probably thinking about it if you're a keen fantasy owner. Rob Williams the third. So he is currently only rostered in 19.1% of league. Most people know him as that Boston Celtic who couldn't stay healthy, and now you know him as that Portland Trailblazer who hasn't stayed healthy. But he's returned and he's only played 4 games so far, but he's averaging 16.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Um, and that's all in 25 minutes. I don't think Portland is going to play him more than that. There's not really much reason to, especially when they have younger guys who want to run. But I think they do want him to play a bit to look solid for potentially a trade bait. And while he's on Portland, he's probably going to get these really nice stats to give people the impression that, oh, yeah, I'm a contender or I'm in position to be contending. I should look at Rob Williams III because Portland might give him up on something. And if you can get stats like today, where you get 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and a block, um, in just 25 minutes, that's pretty solid. The only con I can really identify outside of his known history with injuries is the fact that he's just a center, and you might have your center position kind of locked up already.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Do you think is he going to play back to backs? I've been looking at him, but I think he's is he slated to play back to backs, or right now he's going to sit back to backs?
He looks to be sitting back to back. So
Yeah.
Minnesota had a back to back, and that's the first game that he missed since his return.
Definitely keep an eye on this kid.
That's the watch category, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've got a name here that I'm going to nominate as a real watch guy. In fact, he got the start the other day and dropped 20 points and helped the Cavs get to their 15th win in a row. Yeah, 15 and 0, first team in I think the fourth team in history I think to get to that sort of level, which is Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome, and I don't know about you, man, if you've been keeping an eye on this guy. He's been around a little while. He's actually only he's 27, yeah, so he's been around a
Mm.
while, and he's now getting a role. Yeah, he's getting a role, and he's getting on a role on a winning team, and that's sort of really relevant because when you find the right thing that clicks, similar to like Dalton Connect in the Lakers, I think if you're a smart coach, you keep with that. Yeah, you stick with that. Yeah, this is a rotation that works. I'm winning games now. You stick with it, and giving this guy nearly 20 minutes a game. Yeah, it's about 18 minutes a game. He's shooting a crazy 59% right now, 50% from three. Okay, and he's giving you from an average from the season perspective, it's only about 10 and 4 and 3. But for the last few games now, he's been trending upwards. Yeah, he's been trending upwards. Obviously highlighted with that start as well. But a player that doesn't hurt you with percentages, a player that doesn't hurt you too much with turnovers, I think is always a win. And then when you've got an upside here of he can drop buckets and get threes and little things like that, 8 assists, 6 assists, 5 assists in the last couple of games. Those sort of numbers are reasonable for one of your, your watch spots. I think. Yeah, if you've got someone on your team underperforming, Ben Simmons, drop Ben Simmons and pick up Ty Jerome. Probably not a bad move, yeah? That's what I'm trying to say. So, I got Ty Jerome there.
No, I like it. I actually looked him up and was quite surprised by what I was seeing. I didn't realize he had that much of a role on the Cavs. It's one of those things similar to Peyton Pritchard, I would say. When you're surrounded by good teammates, sometimes the game is easier for players like that. And on a bad team, they're not going to get those kind of stats, but on a good team, they do. And the efficiency is really underrated. If you can get 12 and 5 out of a guy who never hurts your percentages, in fact, helps other players' percentages with his effective shooting. Yeah, good pick. I like it.
My last name here I'm going to nominate as a watch here is a guy that was injured and he's back now. Okay, and then I think he was injured a bit again, but I don't think it was a major injury. Is DeAndre Hunter at the Atlanta Hawks, and he was actually free in my 14-man league, man. And we had a chat a little while ago about that team, and it was like what there was limited options because of the 14-man league. Yeah, I'm sure anyone in a 14-man league, you're going, there's a lot less on the waiver wire than a 10-man league. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, and DeAndre Hunter was, I think, dropped at some point. He was injured, obviously, from several weeks, and he was sitting there. And I was like, I heard he was coming back. I kept my eye on, who's might be around the corner coming back, and so I grabbed him. And I think he's got a huge upside. This guy right now, his average is about 19 and 6. Even in that regresses a little bit. Okay, he shoots about 45-46%. Last season, if we look at that more as a baseline here, about 16 points, 4 rebounds, couple of assists, about a steal, makes a couple of threes. He does all these little things. Yeah, and this is why he's a watch candidate. I think if he's out there and you're looking for a player that has an upside to what they can do, DeAndre Hunter should be on your radar right now. Last 2 games here, he scored 20 plus points. The Hawks are, I don't know, treading water again, if that's what you want to call it. Yeah, Trae Young's been a little bit banged up here and there. He misses games. Someone else has to get the looks here. Bogdanovic is out still. They got Zachary Rashad, starting some games, not starting some games. That's the sort of situation. Yeah, and DeAndre Hunter has been, I think, in the league now for 5 years. Yeah, he's ahead of that pecking order. He's definitely much more established. Him and Jalen Johnson, I think, are going to be beneficiaries of everything else that's going around them in Atlanta.
Well, what's interesting for Atlanta, and this isn't exclusive to DeAndre, this is like for any Atlanta Hawk, they're actually 5th in the East. And their record is 7 and 8, so you wouldn't expect them to be 5th. But that's the East right now, right? And the thing is, early in the season, there's going to be a lot of trialing lineups to see what's competitive. And then Atlanta already has to be competitive because they don't really have any trade partners or moves to get another good draft pick. They do owe it to other teams. But they're going to be competitive because they got to do something. Like, if you're already 5th in the East just by being sub 500,
I love the Charlotte. If the season ended today, Charlotte's in the play-in.
Correct, but that's how wild the East is, right? So I think Atlanta is going to be frisky, and there's going to be interesting players on that team. When you pulled up DeAndre Hunter, I actually looked him up. He hasn't played many games this season. In fact, only 4, and has had some knee issues. But he's young, and hopefully it works out. He's actually had 24, 22, and 24 points in his last 3 games. They're very staggered, but with Trae Young getting 19 assists today, I don't know if you saw that. I did it for my video before. If Trae Young becomes a distributor at that level, we are going to have a very interesting Hawks team to talk about.
Anyway, that's our drop, hold, watch list. We'd love to hear your feedback. Maybe we've got to go brainstorm. Do we rename this? Is it? Maybe we can go to up and down.
Stock
and down.
up, stay down.
Down.
Stay down, up, stay up, down. I don't know.